In my business, I get to work with and meet some very interesting people, and Terry Warren is no exception. He's my guest on this new episode of Giant TV. Hi, this is Paul Hitchcock, founder of Giant Jacks Media, and I had a chance recently to sit down with Terry and just had a fascinating discussion. He's an executive coach. He's an artist. He's been a corporate guy forever, transitioned into executive coaching, and just has a wonderful story to tell about what he's doing, how he got into coaching, how he integrates his artistic side of painting into his practice of helping C-suite executives and leaders with issues they're facing at their jobs. And so let's dive in to this interview with Terry. You're gonna love it. Hi, everybody. This is Paul Hitchcock, and thank you for jumping on Giant TV. And I'm really excited to have my guest here, Terry Warren, today. Terry, welcome.
Thanks, Paul. Great to be here, man.
Yeah, and for those who are listening, in my work, I get to talk to some really dynamic people that are doing very interesting things, and Terry fits the bill there. He is an executive coach, and he's an artist, which we're going to get into. And this is all about Terry, what you're doing, how you got into executive coaching. And I know you and I have talked offline. You've got so many things you've done in your career. Fascinating. But how you got into the coaching business, what you're doing, and where you're going. And I want to also explore the artist side of what you're doing. So let's start there.
Okay. So how did I get into coaching?
Yeah. Where did it all start?
Well, it started with the fact that, first of all, I'm not a retiring type.
Right.
You know, I guess I've just been a type A forever or something. But I knew that 4 years, I told my company 4 years ahead of time the day I would retire. And I was like, but I got to do something else between now and then that also I can continue after the fact.
Because you weren't going to go fishing and sit on a dock all day long.
No, I'm not too good with that.
Yeah,
I don't have the patience. And so I spent a year just talking to anybody that would talk to me, about what are some things that people do after they've had my kind of background,
right?
And just getting input. And then they'd give me somebody else, and I just talk to people. And it started to come together what people were viewing my skill sets were, listening, stuff like that. And one day I was in a corporate meeting and a executive coach spoke.
Oh, okay.
And as he spoke, it was like bingo.
It just hit because what he was saying resonated
brings
with
those
you?
things. Yeah, because I'm a person, I like to connect dots.
Right.
And so I like to just grab a bunch of information. And then at some point, it's going to come together.
Right.
I just don't know when the point is, right? But it was like when he talked about what an executive coach does, I said, well, that's really what people have been telling me in bits and pieces.
Right.
And so I grabbed him as soon as it was over. And I said, I want to be one of you. You got to talk to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so he started talking to me about what a coach does, how you get to be one. And then my next thing was I didn't want to just retire from corporate America, have hair this color, and claim I was a coach.
Right.
I wanted some kind of legitimacy.
So training, you wanted to get trained up.
Oh yeah, whatever that looked like. And so then I went on another set of interviews, and I interviewed 9 coaches all around the country of different types.
Wow.
Wellness coaches, executive coaches, life coach, whatever they did.
Yeah.
And I basically had a set of questions because I believe when you're doing things like this, a consistent set of questions gets you a theme.
Okay, so you're asking the same thing of all the coaches.
Yeah. Example.
Right.
Example. What is the very best thing about being a coach?
Mm-hmm.
What is the very worst thing about being a coach?
Yeah.
How do you get to be a coach?
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to know those things. So when I did all that, I realized I needed to get an education, and there were lots of places to get them, but I also traveled 40, 50% of the time.
Oh, okay.
So I had to find a way to get an education that would work with that. So fast forward, I found a place where I could go to boot camp and then do virtual, right, to
Oh,
finish.
right. Okay.
Yeah. And so then what I did is I went to my company and said, okay, I found the last thing I want to do, and I'll pay for all of that, but you got to give me some internal clients so I can graduate because I have to have so many hours,
Oh,
right?
I see. Okay. Okay.
So they said, sure. So they gave me internal clients. I earned my International Coach Federation certification. And then that's how I got started in coaching.
Wow.
And then I went back to the company and said, okay, I'm getting ready to leave. I'll make you a deal if you will continue to give me clients when I'm in my own practice.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, we're in the 6th year of that.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah,
you've got a pool of clients there.
right.
They identify who they want to
Yes.
match with you.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. And what's the main focus of what you're doing when you work with those people?
I would say there's 3 categories. There would be C-suite, kind of clients
Yeah.
who, in part, it's a confidential place to have a conversation.
Right. Right.
There's a lot to be said for the lonely at the top stuff because it's
Yeah.
real.
Yep.
But that's also at a C-suite level, it becomes a lot about what I call the soft skills
How do you
versus
define those? Yeah.
versus things like how you relate to people, how you paint a vision, how you manage your own emotions,
Mm-hmm.
things like that,
Right.
that become more important than your technical skills. You don't need them,
Interesting.
right?
Interesting.
So
Yeah.
that's one category. The second category I've found is a lot of people who are very successful at some technical area. I will count sales as a technical area,
Okay.
but they're very successful at something well recognized. And all of a sudden somebody says, we want you to be a leader. How does one make the transition from one kind of success to being a successful leader? Because it's a different skill set.
Yeah, I would imagine big time.
Yeah, there's the greatest coach in the world is a guy named Marshall Goldsmith.
Right. Yeah, I've seen
And
his stuff. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
if you've seen his book, one of the books, his title is "What Got You Here Won't Get You There,"
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's really true. If
Yeah.
you've never been a leader, or you're now up to a higher level of leadership, so it's
Right.
helping people make that. And then the third category they send me are what I would call high potentials. They have identified great talent, but they want to change the trajectory of how fast that talent develops.
Oh, I see.
And so they engage me to help them do that.
Warren, I've got to imagine that, and you said it, that you're a great listener and that you talk to these people about, their own ways of interacting with people. I got to imagine, there's a certain vulnerability that somebody has to be open to when they're dealing with you. And that's not always easy. And so whenever I hear you talk like this, I think, aren't you're almost part therapist, right, or counselor, because you got to bring out emotions in people, and not a lot of us are comfortable in our skin talking about emotions in a business environment. Is that
Yeah.
a fair statement?
Well, I am absolutely not a mental health professional whatsoever. I've used them and they've been very helpful to me.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but that's not what I do at all. It's really, if I feel like somebody has a serious, kind of thing, I'm going to refer them to somebody that is a professional in mental health. It gets emotional because, working with anybody, you can't separate life and work.
No.
They are
No.
not mutually exclusive.
No.
And so I tell clients, this is a safe place. I can't tell anybody anything you and I talk about.
Meaning they could open up about colleagues and leadership in an open
Anything
environment.
they want.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And in fact, what I tell them is that here's how this relationship works. On my part, I can't tell anybody anything. If your company is paying me to coach you, I can tell them you're engaged or you're not.
Right.
You're showing up, you're not.
Right.
But if they want to know any details, I'm not going to tell them.
Okay. All right.
I don't care if you, the client, get on top of the building with a, one of those big megaphone things and tell everybody every word of every conversation. I don't care.
Yeah.
I just can't do that. It's not ethical,
Mm-hmm.
From a coaching standpoint.
Right. Yeah.
And so, I mean, everything I do is built around trust. That's the net.
I imagine it's got to be. You got to have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because people would be shocked at some things that people they think are very successful struggle with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they can't show that.
Yeah.
That's why having a safe place to go, you know what, I got to tell you the truth. I'm really struggling with this or that.
Right. How long does the engagement last with a person in your practice?
I guess it depends. I've got some clients that I think I've had 4 years or more.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Typically, I don't like to engage with anyone less than 9 months.
Okay.
Strongly prefer a year. And Paul, the reason for that is in the course of a year, I tell people stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea what that stuff will be.
Mm-hmm.
But something's going to happen in that year where it's going to be really good to have this place to sound out ideas.
You mean just life is going to happen within that year?
Life's going to happen. All of a sudden you weren't expecting, let's say, there's a change in leadership in your company.
Oh, yeah, right.
And the whole game changes for you because a person changed, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or you found out your company's closing. What do I do now?
Mm-hmm.
Or you wake up one day and you're now unemployed. Or you wake up and you go, you know what? I really thought this is what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
Right.
But I'm starting to think it's not. So
Right.
things like that happen. That's what I call stuff.
Yeah. Well, I want to bring up your book, Warren, because you have this great book. And as you're talking about your experiences and how you're working with people, tell me about the book and how that came about, and what's going on with the book now.
Yeah. I can tell you that I never, ever wanted to write a book.
Why?
That was never Why? A goal. I just never was a goal. I hadn't figured out anything to say.
Yeah.
But here's what created the book. It started with, after coaching since, on my own since 15, but really 3 years before that.
Yep.
I saw this pattern. And the pattern was when a client made an intentional choice to change something that was transformational for them. I mean, it could be minor thing to most people, or it could be a really big thing, shift in the behavior, do something. If they intentionally chose it, were willing to seriously commit to seeing that through, and were willing to be held accountable, their success rate was 100%.
Ah, okay.
I'm pretty sure that's a good number.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. That's a good number.
And I said, of course, it's because I'm the most wonderful coach in the whole world. Right. And I thought, there's something to this idea about choice. They chose to do this.
Mm-hmm.
One of my clients used that word for why he had been able to achieve what he did. He chose to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that just like sent off alarm bells. I told you how pieces come together for me.
Yeah.
That was it. His word, I chose to do it, was like, there's something here.
And the name of the book is The Art of Choice.
The Art of Choice.
Right.
And so what I did from there, Paul, was to say, you know what? I've got a few friends in Nashville who would be recognized as very highly successful people. And I just want to go talk to them because I haven't coached them, and see if during their career, there was a time when they made a choice like that. How'd they do it? What happened? And how did it change the rest of their career? So I went to this one friend of mine who'd been very successful. And we had this chat. And when he started telling me this story about his choice, his energy level just like went,
Oh,
and
it
he's
did.
so excited, you know. And so when he finished talking to me, I just said, tell me a story about a time that, you know, you did this. He told me the story. I really liked it. And he said, you know what, Terry, I think you ought to talk to these 3 other people. I said, okay, will you introduce me? Sure. So I go talk to those 3 people, and guess what? They give me 3 more people. So over the course of about 18 months, I interviewed 21 highly successful people from all
Wow.
kinds of industries,
Wow.
men, women. Had one guy who was responsible for the National Guard's response to 9/11 and to some
Oh,
other.
okay.
So it's a
Okay.
variety of people, and every single one had 1 or 2 stories where this same idea of an intentional choice, a commitment to it, and some form of accountability. It depended on, you know, different people do that different ways, was successful. And I said, somehow this has got to be shared. Somehow people need to know what's possible if you truly get this part right,
Yeah.
make a choice, commit to it, and be willing and held accountable.
I
And
think
so that's how I ended up with the book.
that's how you got the book going. I think it's profound because as you're even describing it now, I know we've talked about this before, but it seems like a lot of people, you can float through life and almost be reactionary to careers and family and other things, not really making a hardcore choice, but just kind of reacting and going through it. Or you can do what you described, is make a hardcore choice and make unique things happen. Uh,
Well, I
yeah.
just talked to a client this morning um, in another country, and he was a bit disappointed. Something that he thought would happen in the company that would give him a lot of opportunity to grow did not happen.
Didn't come about. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he's like, you know, now those opportunities are out the window. I said, great. So let's talk about how you're going to create opportunity.
Hmm.
And so we spent some time just talking about what you can't just sit back and wait for an opportunity to show up.
Right. Right.
Look for it,
Yeah.
create it.
Yeah.
You know, I told him of a time that there was something going on in our company. It had nothing to do with it. But after this thing was put together, it was a mess. And I just went to the CEO and said, this thing what you've done is great, but it's a mess. It needs somebody in charge to fix it. You want me to do that?
You mean it wasn't the execution of it was a mess?
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I tell people it was an airplane that was built while it was taking off. And so I just said, hey, somebody needs to do this. You don't need to pay me anymore. Just, you want me to do that for you? And he said, sure. And that's what I mean. That's just an example of creating opportunity.
Got it. Yeah.
But that's a choice
Right.
to either
Right.
sit back and wait on it or to create it.
Right. Because you spent years, Warren, in corporate America, right? And many years with the same company.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
A long time. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, I want to. So the book sounds fascinating to me, and you're also a painter.
Yeah.
And as I see the artwork behind you there, it brings me back to our discussion about you painting, which I thought was so interesting because you're a corporate guy, based on your history, but you have this artistic side. Tell me about the painting.
Well, and by the way, you notice the title of the book is The Art of Choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Because I wanted to combine both.
Okay.
Because for me, how I think about painting influences how I coach. And how I coach influences how I paint.
Well, you got to describe that. What is that all about?
I'm going to. Well, here's a simple example, very simple example. One of the things in painting is that you really have to understand perspective. You know, if you're going to go out and paint a building, or let's just say a bunch of trees.
Yeah.
You got to understand that the further away those trees are, the smaller they look
Mm-hmm.
as compared to those that are at the front.
Yeah.
Or if you're looking at a building from the corner, you know a building is level, right? And that all the uprights are the same, but it doesn't look that way.
Yeah.
It actually slopes,
Yeah.
right? So you have to understand the perspective or what you're going to paint. I remember I did a painting at Laguna Beach
Oh yeah.
or
Love it.
from
Love it.
of Laguna, and there was this little bench looking at the ocean, right?
I've
Along a
probably
little path.
sat on
You
that
know,
bench.
you
I've
probably
sat
sat
on
on.
that bench many times. Yeah.
So one perspective would be I could stand on one of the little cliffs and look back at the bench,
Right.
and I would see something, right?
Yeah.
But if I went and sat on the bench and looked at the ocean, that's a much bigger perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what I mean is that in art, you got to learn perspective, but it's the same thing in business. You know, so many people I know bring a pre-existing perspective to a situation,
Oh
all
yeah.
their history, all their knowledge, all that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes I tell them it's like a Rubik's Cube. If you look at it from one way, it looks like a square.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
tilt it, it's a little different. If you turn it sideways, it's a little different.
Yeah.
Leaders need to be able to take multiple perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
you see how that and art kind of
Oh yeah. It's a
relate.
great
Yeah,
analogy. Yeah, it's a great
and the
analogy.
other way around is the very process that I told you I went through to decide I'm going to be a coach. In many ways, I've taken that process into how do I get to be a better artist?
What do you mean by interviewing other artists and
Yeah, or taking workshops or doing whatever. But a lot of interviewing other artists and seeing once I do that, what do I want for me? So,
huh?
for example, at my advanced stage, about a year and a half ago, I engaged a guy who's considered a master artist in a number of things. And I said, I need to grow. And he said, well, you need to understand that I charge quite a bit.
Yeah.
I said, I don't care.
You
You're a master.
you needed to grow as an artist is what you were saying.
I need to
Yeah.
grow as an artist.
Okay.
And I need to do that with somebody who actually knows what they're doing,
Huh.
you know, really, really well. And so he has challenged me and pushed me in directions, you know, and that's part of that accountability thing
Yeah.
because he gives
Yeah.
me homework.
Oh yeah.
Well, that to me, those are the same things, whether it's something you're working on in business or in my art. It's the principles that apply. Does that make
Interesting.
sense, Paul?
It does. It's I mean, you really got me thinking about a lot of things. We could go down a path here that's would be fascinating. But are you what are you painting mostly, Warren?
I paint landscapes.
Right. Yeah.
Here's the bottom line is I tell people there are two things that I want from painting besides my own relief, by the way. It's my escape. It's my
Oh, I
happy
bet.
place.
I bet. Yeah.
Yeah. But the two things I want people to look at my art, two things I want is one is I want most of what I paint to be something that you would go, I'd love to be there.
Mm-hmm.
I would really like to be at that place.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would make me calm. It would be excited, whatever it is. I want you to think I'd like to be there. And the second thing is, while I don't want it to be overly detailed, which is something I struggle with,
Right.
I want you to feel like you could be there. You know, you could almost walk into the scene
Mm-hmm.
that's on a, you know, two-dimensional canvas.
Are those examples hanging on the wall there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first one, the one from the Sydney Opera House.
Sydney, right.
Yeah, that was one of my, in fact, it was, I think, my second painting I ever did when I
Good.
lived in Sydney. And
Yeah.
it was a long time ago. So,
Yeah. Well, the way you describe it, the other one to the right, you know, is drawing me in, and you know, I'm stressed right now about things at work. I'd love to be there right now, just sitting under that damn
that
tree.
is about 5:30 a.m. in Jackson Hole.
Oh, is that right? That's beautiful. So were you out there sitting there like what were you doing? You had an easel
It,
out there in the middle of the wilderness?
it depends. Most of my work is studio work in my studio, and it's done from photographs that I personally take.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay, because it's places I've been, I have a feel for them, you know that.
Yeah.
But sometimes, you know, I will go out and I do take my easel and set up. We were just in Highlands, North Carolina,
Hmm.
and there's this little country church that I thought was cool.
Yeah.
So I took off in the morning, put all my gear in, and took it out of my car and set up and painted for a couple of hours to just get a color study. You know,
Okay.
what are the colors like at that time of day? And then I'll come back and do a bigger piece in the studio at some point.
Okay. Okay.
So
And
that's how I do it.
are you selling these pieces, Warren?
Of course.
Rhetorical question. Where do you sell them? I mean,
Yeah.
to friends and family? Are you
I,
going bigger? What are you
I've
doing?
no, I've done them combination of local art shows. Um, there are a number of those that, at least pre-COVID, you know, there were several a year at that were fundraiser kinds of things.
Yeah.
And I just participated in my first one post-COVID a couple of weeks ago.
Oh,
But
okay.
you hang art, you sell it there. I do quite a bit of private commission work.
Okay.
You know, where somebody has something specific they want done.
Yeah.
And then otherwise, it's been word of mouth or somebody saw something on my web. I don't really sell through my website.
Right. Right.
It's
Yeah.
usually word of mouth. Somebody might see it on the website, but you know, it's really more, hey, tell me about this one.
Yeah. So interesting. So interesting. The way you describe how the artistic side of you is woven into the business side. I get it. Makes perfect sense to me. And you're also, I found it, you know, you and I were talking earlier before this, but you're a grandpa, and you also are doing Pilates 2 or 3 times a week, which is keeping you active and engaged. You know, that was awesome.
Yeah, I was joking with you before we started recording, but I've often thought I've got some speaking engagements coming up, and I thought whatever they say in the introduction about who I am and what this is about, I think I'll have to say at the end is, but you left out one really important title, Silly Grandpa.
Which is probably one of the most important of your titles, if I would guess, maybe.
Right. Yeah, my grandkids call me that, Silly Grandpa.
Silly grandpa. Why? Because you're always joking with them and laughing with them
Yeah.
and stuff. Yeah.
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 How many grandchildren do you have?
6.
Oh my gosh. Are they close by? Do you get to see them?
Yep. Yep. They're all close. In fact, 4 of them this year will be in a school that is 3 houses from us.
Oh.
And we are the afternoon snack stop if they have to go back to school for something.
Oh
So they'll
man.
come over and stay for a little while and then go back to school.
Oh, how awesome is that? Your wife must
Yeah,
just be ecstatic over that scenario.
that's great.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, Warren, I could talk with you forever. This has been phenomenal. I mean, you've got so much going on. Really, really love having you come on board here. And I know that you and I are going to stay in touch. And I want to thank everybody for listening. Warren, thank you, and the best of luck with everything.
Can I leave your group with a question?
Of course.
As a coach, you got to do this, right?
Yes.
It's just a food for thought question.
Okay.
And the question is, what is possible for you now that was never possible before?
What is possible for you now that was never possible for you before? Okay. Is that something, is there an add-on to that, or are you just going to leave that and ponder that question?
Here's how I'll leave it is I'm a believer in what's possible. So whatever history is important, you know, to get you to where you are. But right now you're in a spot you've never been in before for some reason or the other. So what's possible now that wasn't possible, say, a year ago? What's possible?
I love it.
I don't have the answer.
I love it. No, I love it. You've got me thinking about my own life and career right now, you know. Yeah, man. And I want to say, Warren, too, for those listening, they're going to be able to get in touch with you around this video. They're going to, wherever they're going to watch it, whether it's, you know, YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, email, wherever they see it, they'll be able to reach you. And I highly encourage everyone listening is connect with Warren. As I get to know you more and more, your wealth of knowledge and inspiration in so many ways. So thank you.
You bet. My pleasure. Thank you,
Okay.
Paul.
You're welcome. We'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.
Bye bye.